I mean, the thing with the worms, though, if you do have a worm rock, you got to keep the coral alive in order for the worms to live long term as well. Yes. I have noticed that. So once the coral itself tends to die off, the worms will last a little while, but they tend to just kind of dissipate after that.
What's up, Reef Fanatics? Welcome to another episode of the Coral Reef Talk podcast. Here again with Levi Peterson. We're talking about SPS corals today.
Yes, we are.
Just like our previous episode on LPS, I've picked out 3, Levi picked out 3, and we're just going to jump into the topic of SPS corals, some easy SPS corals that you can keep in your reef aquarium if you're brand new to the world of SPS and you're trying to find something to add to your tank. Some of these you will be able to get into right away and try your hand at them. And then we, of course, have some interesting SPS to look at because we have Oddball Reefer with us, as always. So yeah, starting it off, SPS corals. SPS stands for small polyp stony coral. They have the smaller polyps on the corals, unlike something like a Euphyllia coral that has like the large sweeper tentacles that reach out and everything. The big polyps, these don't have that. Much smaller, so they gain the name SPS.
Yeah, SPS is definitely one of my favorite groups of corals. I don't have many SPS personally, and that's not just because I don't like them. It's just because I don't really entirely have the systems to keep a large amount of SPS. But I do have a few specimens, and we're going to kind of jump into a couple of them here shortly. So super excited to share what we have to offer for you guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to get us rolling here into the SPS with one of the first ever SPS that I got started with in the hobby. This is one that is typically recommended for beginners. It's pretty easy to take care of as your first SPS, at least in my opinion. How do you feel about the red Monty cap?
Yeah, definitely one of the easier ones. And I definitely, if you're trying to kind of get started with SPS, this is definitely a good one to dive into. Once you get them going, they do grow really fast, which is amazing. And they have a unique growth pattern, the Monty caps at least anyways, that kind of grow into almost like a scrolling type shape eventually. So they're super pretty. They add some texture to your reef. And there's multiple different species of Montera that all have different growth patterns too. But this is definitely one of my favorites in the Montera realm.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the growth pattern here, kind of played out and scroll like you're talking about. And they get really large in the aquarium. They're pretty easy to frag too. You can break off a little plate and then put that somewhere else in your tank or give that to a friend. But yeah, red Montera, pretty easy to care for. SPS coral. Now, SPS corals, they like a little more water flow than other corals, but typically you're looking at similar care requirements sort of across the board from like LPS and SPS. They kind of like the water a little bit more clean, I would say. Like if you're keeping up on your maintenance and doing water changes and making sure that you're keeping up with your parameters, then you'll be able to probably handle SPS just fine. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, SPS, they can be easy as long they're not as forgiving as soft corals and certain LPS corals. I would just recommend you got to be adamant about keeping up with your alkalinity, pH, your salinity, because certain swings will just wipe them out. Alkalinity especially, they definitely don't mess with alkalinity. So try to keep your alkalinity stable as possible. But yeah, if it does swing, they do tend to be affected by that. So try to keep that maintained the best that you can while keeping SPS.
Yeah, SPS is definitely considered the harder to keep coral. There's more sensitive SPS corals out there, different acroporas that are harder to keep than some of the ones that we're going to be talking about. But yeah, the red Monty cap, like that is a classic SPS beginner coral. And like you touched on, there's a huge variety or many different colors when it comes to these guys. And what's really neat is
Yeah.
some have been even grafted together. And so you got the
Yes.
red and
Yes.
green grafted coral. I think I first saw this from Worldwide Corals back in the day. But yeah,
Those are
there's super cool, especially the grafted one. Those are going to fetch you a higher price than, of course, the regular red Montes. But I mean, if you're into Monteporas and you get a handle on growing one of these, yeah, definitely check out one of those grafted ones because that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some now that have like purple, green, and orange or
Yeah,
red. I mean, it's
that's
pretty
insane.
it's insane what they're doing. So,
Okay, so before we get to the next coral, I just want to thank our channel sponsor for the podcast, and that is Printed Reef. Printed Reef is providing 3D printed solutions for your reef aquarium, and they do that by providing things like the sand stand and these coral holders, and even mushroom cages like this. And they have many more products to offer you over at printedreef.com. And if you're a subscriber to the Coral Reef Talk, you can go over to printedreef.com/TheCoralReefTalk and use the discount code to save 10% off your purchase. So you can use the code TheCoralReefTalk at checkout, and that is going to save you 10% off of your Printed Reef products. The link and the discount code will be down in the description below or the show notes here on the podcasting platform. If you're watching this on the video podcast, you'll be able to see the products that I'm holding up right now. If you're listening, check out the show notes for more information. Now, what have you got for us? What's your first one?
all right. So my first coral, definitely is relatively easy in the SPS realm of things. We're going to be talking about Pries. This is my favorite SPS coral. And people ask me why I say that all the time because they claim it's ugly. Most varieties are brown, but if you know me, I like to run most of my tanks under pretty much white, light, or full spectrum. So I appreciate the brown corals a little more than what normal people would appreciate them in their blue lit tanks. But Pries are relatively easy. You just gotta, like I said, keep up with your alkalinity. Try not to let that swing much at all, especially salinity as well. Just try to keep stuff stable. If you're keeping SPS, just try your best to keep your parameter stable. Pries is definitely pretty forgiving from what I've noticed. I have this specific specimen in my Caribbean tank, and no, it is not a Caribbean Christmas tree worm rock. This is from Australia, so just keep that in mind. Okay. I just put it in my Caribbean tank because I had nowhere else to put it, and I had to have this rock. I mean, you can't get away from the beauty. But this specific Pries is hosting a bunch of Christmas tree worms. Super colorful. They kind of tend to share a symbiotic relationship with the rock. And obviously, they're similar to feather dusters in the same family. They feed off of plankton and nutrients out of the tank. So super cool. When people think about Pries, they usually think, oh yeah, the Christmas tree worms. But there is a bunch of different varieties of Pries as well. You got branching Pries. You got encrusters. You even got some that plate. You don't see the plating ones too often. It's definitely hard to come by. A lot of the ones you're going to see in the hobby are the branching and the encrusters. You do get some unique colors. I've collected some unique ones over the past 3 years. I wish I would have shared the pictures with you. The Darth Maul Pries, the Grinch Pries, yellow Pries. I mean, there's a couple branching ones that I've collected throughout the hobby as well. So I just try to, have a little bit of everything when it comes to each coral. But yeah, Pries is definitely a unique one. Not many people have it anymore. It used to be way more common back in the day. From what I've heard from other reefers that have been in the hobby longer than I have. But I'm starting to see a little bounce back with it. Super excited to be bringing these in at work, these worm rocks. Getting people excited about them again. So,
yeah, I mean, the worms alone on it is just interesting to watch. Like, there's so many different colors in them. It's like, why wouldn't you want to have this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the thing with the worms, though, If you do have a worm rock, you got to keep the coral alive in order for the worms to live long term as well.
Gotcha.
I have noticed that. So once the coral itself tends to die off, the worms will last a little while, but they tend to just kind of dissipate after that. But this specific specimen is doing amazing for me. So
yeah, and with names like the Grinch and Darth Maul, I mean, come on.
yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
The names in this hobby is just phenomenal. There's so many
insane.
interesting names
So
for a lot
many
of different corals.
unique names, strange names. I mean, it's insane what people come up with, and there's something new every day. Every time I'm scrolling through Instagram, there's a new name. Like, it's insane.
All right, so next up we have the classic bird's nest coral, and this is a pink bird's nest. So their care level is easy to moderate. I mean, anytime we're talking SPS, you should be on top of your parameters for sure. It's a nice peaceful coral to have, and it's a lot of thin branching entangled pieces of coral. It looks like a bird's nest almost. So what's your thought on keeping bird's nests?
Bird's nests are definitely another one of my faves. They come in a couple different colors. Usually you see green, but there is a pink variety out there. You don't see it too often anymore. I know ORA is aquaculturing it. That's one place you could probably snag a frag. Definitely a unique coral. They grow tightly together like the branches, hence the name bird's nest. They add a unique texture to your tank. They have weird growth patterns. They're relatively easy to keep once you get them going. The pink bird's nest specifically, though, I have heard of other sources say the same thing. They tend to grow really well for me, and then they slowly start to die off. So it's super weird because I've kept like green bird's nest right next to a pink bird's nest, and the green one goes crazy. I'm not sure if it's like the green has just been grown so much, but there's also different varieties of the green one as well. There's like I've seen some teal ones that are really unique. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's up with the pink bird's nest, but I have a specimen here on a frag rack in the Caribbean tank that's I got it off of Julian probably. It was back in April during wrap. But it's still alive. It's not really growing. It's shot up a couple little new branches, but it's not going crazy yet. So we'll see what happens. But I've kept the green version and had no issues with it whatsoever. They seem to be pretty hardy, but like Joey said, just keep your parameters as stable as you can. That's going to give you the best chance possible with an SPS coral.
Yeah, and touching on placement real quick, would you say putting it like in the middle to the top of your tank, because you need strong lighting and water flow for SPS coral?
Yes.
So,
I mean, it really depends on the coral. A lot of the Pries even like are found deeper, but bird's nest, from what I've seen, like on videos I've seen and just hearing from people's experiences overseas diving, you find bird's nests towards the upper parts of the reef. And even I've seen like photographs of them like in like shallower tide pools. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Probably like moderate flow for the bird's nest and heavy light, especially with the pink bird's nest. They like the light for sure.
And then you have another pretty easy to care for, or considered easier to care for in the SPS realm of things. What do you got for us?
So, this next one is the green Slimer Acro. It has been in the hobby. It was probably one of the first acros really to show up in the hobby, I want to say. And it's been like aquacultured over and over. So I mean, it's at least I gotta say it's one of the hardiest acros you can get your hands on. I've kept a couple different specimens. They do amazing for me. I haven't kept one in a tank long term. I have not killed one yet either. So I've only had them as long as I've had the tank set up. So I'm hoping to get another specimen here soon. Maybe place it in the Caribbean tank to mimic a staghorn of some sort. But they're super unique. It is a Staghorn Acro. They grow really long branches and branch out. So they will definitely take up some space once they get growing. But with that said, they are super easy to frag. All you really have to do is take some bone cutters in there, and I've even seen people do it with their hands. You just got to be extremely careful without breaking the whole colony apart. But just breaking off a branch, sawing off the end and kind of putting it on a frag plug, and it starts taking off again. So super easy to frag. Like I said, one of the easiest acros to grow since it's been in the hobby for so long. It's pretty hardy. So if you're looking for your first acro, I definitely recommend the Bally Green Slimer.
It's got like a really bright green to it.
Yes.
So if you're looking for a pop of color, that's definitely going to do the trick. And a lot of these corals, so I'm not sure on the prices of all of the corals that we're talking about, but I know like a Montera red cap, you're probably looking in like the $30 range for a frag, and even bird's nest probably $30 depending on where you get your corals. So they're not super high priced corals. They're not like high end collector corals, but these are just corals that if you're thinking about getting SPS, you can definitely start with try your hand with this.
Yeah.
And then like another one talking about color that comes in a variety of colors would be the Stylophora.
Yes.
Now these guys are really cool because they appear fuzzy in your tank almost. Like they're fuzzier than like the bird's nest that's like tighter. If you're watching the video podcast, you can see here there's a purple stylo, a green stylo, and like a reddish stylo, reddish pinkish stylo right there. And this would be similar care requirements to a bird's nest, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. So,
yeah, somewhere mid-level to high in your tank. You want, I mean, I've seen par levels recommended to like 300.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's green, there's brown, there's orange, purple, pink. So many different colors of the stylo.
Yeah, and they're super unique. I mean, like you said, they're super fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple at work right now that I fragged up, and they grow really fast. A lot of these specimens, like that you're going to find at your local fish stores, are aquacultured. I mean, I haven't imported a Stylophora in a long time. So almost every single probably one that you're going to see is going to be aquaculture. So you have a really good chance of keeping them long term and keeping them healthy, as they're going to be more hardy because they've been in the aquarium hobby a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
So they can handle a little bit of kind of like a beat down from your parameters. But yeah, I mean, they're super cool. They get super long polyps when they're happy. We got some at work that their polyps extend probably almost a ½ inch. It's insane. Like, it's so fuzzy. It's moving around in the current. Super cool. They come, like Joey said, in multiple different colors. So you can kind of pick and choose, and they're pretty readily available, and they're relatively cheap as well. I know we sell them pretty cheap at work, and I hope the local fish stores are doing the same. But last time I was in the local fish store, I mean, I was finding frags for $10 to $20, and they were nice and chunky. So definitely a good one to kind of get your hands on if you're jumping into SPS.
Yeah, for sure. And again, SPS Coral, you want to have that water flow going because they like the heavier water current for sure, faster movement. And just even watching the polyps sway in the current, and like if you set up your wave maker to like a pulse, that's always really cool to see these with the pulse action, you know. So the next one, what do you got for us next? This is an interesting one.
So this is a Pavona. It's super unique. I have this is not my picture, but I have the same exact species of coral in the Caribbean tank. It grows really fast. It's unique. It's not the most colorful, but it does get a bright neon green under blue lights. But it does get super fuzzy. And like I said, it's just a unique coral. It encrusts, but it also branches. But the branches are a weird, funky shape, hence the cactus name it gets. They kind of get like fans or like just kind of little nubs like you see here. Just a super unique coral, relatively easy. It's been around in the hobby for quite a long time. I know ORA grows this one, I believe. I got my specimen from Julian Sprung. It's been probably since April. I got it at the same time as the pink bird's nest, and it is encrusting over the big boulder on the left of my Caribbean tank. It's pretty much taken off.
Nice.
So super excited about that. It's super fuzzy. It's super unique. And I mean, you don't see it too often anymore. It used to be a lot more common from what I've heard from everyone else. But a lot of people nowadays are going for those high-end collector Acros and Montes. But if you're looking for something unique, even if you're pretty advanced in the industry or hobby, this is definitely something to add to your tank that's easy, that looks different, and that'll add a little bit of green coloration to your tank.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple different colors of this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this one specifically is super fuzzy. I mean, they call it fuzzy Pavona. And then you get like the potato chip versions that come in green, purple. I've even seen some like more orange.
Orange, yeah.
Looking. So those are super cool. They grow really easy. They are super fragile though, so keep that in mind. And then you do get like the Pavona meldivensis, which is a super hard encrusting coral. Green and orange is usually the only one I've seen them come in as, or brown. But they're super unique as well. But like the Pavona cactus and this fuzzy Pavona, they get a weird growth pattern to them, and they're super thin. They just look unique and add some texture to your tank that you might not get from other corals. So,
and this is the one they also call this the cabbage coral, right?
Cabbage coral, I've heard that. I've heard them call that. Yes, cactus coral is pretty much what I hear most of the time.
Right.
But yeah, it's just something unique and different that you may not have, and you may want to add to your tank to add some diversity. So
that's the SPS corals that are pretty easy for you to get your feet wet, jump in, try some SPS corals.
Well, guys, thanks for watching the podcast or listening in. If you're listening in, I just want to kind of give you guys some tips and tricks and share a few SPS corals with you guys, and share maybe what we've kept or what we'd like to keep, and just our favorite SPS corals in general. Can't thank you enough.
And we'll see you in the next one.
Sounds good. See you guys.
If you missed the last episode, be sure to click or tap your screen to watch this one here. Thank you so much for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.